EA Sports. It's in the game.
Well, Paul Felder wants his teammate Sean Brady's nickname to be Brickhouse, and I'm not sure there's a more appropriate moniker for this guy than that. Have you ever seen Sean better to a loss?
Shit, I don't know. I thought you got off, so I don't watch. I'm put a movie on. Shit,
Remember the name Muhammad. This man's
I thought you got off, bitch. Yeah, yeah. All right. Man, you know, look. How you gonna lock this? Who? Yeah, I think I seen him before. Yeah, I already be watching that shit. This man. Nah, let's watch that right there. Go down. Yeah, that's yeah. Let's see what that's talking.
22
See what this talking
movies,
about.
22 real incidents, 7 levels. Let's
Keep doing
start
that. Don't
with
stop
the
now.
tip of this iceberg.
Do it again. Not
Level
you.
1, Man in the Windshield. Stuck is a horror thriller about a young caregiver who drives home with a man stuck in her windshield. In the film, early
Ooh, I
that
might want to
night,
watch
Brandy,
that.
the caregiver, goes out, mixes alcohol with pills, and
Not
decides
that
to
movie.
drive in that intoxicated state. The next moment, she
It's
hits
based on
Tom
real
hard
life.
enough for his body to end up lodged halfway in the passenger side through the windshield. He is badly hurt, but still conscious and right in front of her. Instead of stopping and calling for an ambulance, Brandy keeps going until she reaches home with Tom still trapped in the glass. Brandy knows calling 911 will bring paramedics and police, which could destroy her promotion chances. So, once in the garage, she closes the door on him and walks away.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. You should have watched where you were going.
In the final act of Stuck, Tom keeps trying to free himself and finally manages to push out of the windshield and starts crawling across the garage floor. That escape makes Brandy panic and she grabs anything she can to chase him across the backyard. The fight between them spills into the road and the chaos ends in a way that has no link to the real case. Brandy is struck by a passing car and dies in the street while Tom survives.
What the fuck?
Help me, please. Help.
But in the real case, Gregory Biggs, Tom in the film, never escaped. On October 26, 2001, Shantae Mallard, aka Brandy, called her friend Cleet Jackson instead of the police, and he arrived with his cousin Herbert Cleveland. They moved Gregory's body to Cobb Park to stage a random hit and run and tried to clean and burn the car. The cover-up hit national news as the windshield, and the jury sentenced Mallard to 50 years for plus extra time for tampering.
Damn.
Endless River. In Jungle, Yossi and Kevin are seen riding their flimsy raft downstream, trying to stay away from the worst of the current. But it suddenly swings sideways, slams into rocks, and breaks apart.
Get your paddle! Get your paddle! What? Quick! Get your paddle! Paddle, Yossi!
What the fuck?
Paddle! Jesus, he's too hot!
Kevin manages to swim toward one bank while Yossi gets dragged into deeper water and swept around a bend, completely out of sight. After a while, he finally claws his way out of the river and drags himself onto the mud. And the first thing he does is start shouting for Kevin.
Kevin!
But no one answers. Yossi tries to walk back upstream, convinced Kevin must be nearby. However, steep banks and fast water keep blocking his path. The movie then locks onto Yossi's world shrinking to one rule: follow the river and stay moving. Each time he's forced away from the river, he ends up farther from where he started, which slowly makes it clear he might be on his own now. Yossi's strength drops fast, causing him to slip, stumble, and react slower to surroundings. Moreover, getting close to water to drink is another risk because one wrong step could throw him back into the current he barely survived. Yossi spent 4 full days searching for Kevin along that river. After that, he was alone in the jungle for almost 3 weeks with nothing to survive on. As the film pushes toward the end of his ordeal, Yossi stops trying to escape the jungle and focuses on surviving long enough for anyone to find him. He sets up tiny resting spots, moves slower, and saves every bit of energy he can. The sequence finally breaks when Yossi hears a faint motor in the distance. He uses what little strength he has left to crawl back toward the riverbank and wave. A small boat appears, and the men on board get closer. When they come in range, Yossi is shocked to see his friend Kevin on board, and finally collapses. The film doesn't exaggerate how unlikely that rescue was. Kevin had made it out of the jungle on his own days earlier, been told Yossi was probably dead, and still refused to accept it. He pushed local boatmen to keep searching the river until almost 3 weeks after the accident, they happened to pass the exact stretch of bank where Yossi was standing. In real life, things didn't line up as neatly as the movie makes them seem.
My life was spared. I mean, I know Kevin saved my life, but it was a miracle. For sure, it was a miracle.
Events were more spread out, choices were messier, and a lot of moments came down to confusion and luck rather than clear turning points. The rescue was real, but getting there took longer and felt far less controlled than the film lets on. When the rig blew. In Deepwater Horizon, thick mud shoots out of the well and turns a drilling shift into a fight for survival. As the pressure climbs, mud slams onto the deck, and before anyone can make sense of the readings, the floor begins shaking, pushing the operators to act blindsided. One of them moves toward the control panel and tries to bring the well under control instead. The pressure climbs higher. Gas detectors sound alarms across the rig, indicating that something deeper is moving toward them. When BP managers step in, they treat the odd readings as harmless, just to get over their job. And that starts the domino effect. Once displacement begins, the rig feels wrong in quiet but steady ways. Mud levels in the pits rise in patterns no one can explain. The flow coming out grows stronger instead of easing back. Some workers clear alarms and reset sensors to clean up the noise on their panels, which buys them a tiny amount of relief. However, that calm slips away when the readings drift again, worse than the last. That pressure keeps building until the well finally snaps. Mud blasts out of the hole and slams across.
Hey, pause it real quick. I'm gonna get an apple out the kitchen. Hold on. I need to put my phone in. You don't get them apples enough.
Like the main thing, like the back one.
Put a dry wash machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daddy.
Yo. Yeah. Man, why I can't control this shit? They're already in, huh? Yo. Yeah.
Across the deck, gas rides the mud into rooms that were supposed to stay sealed. The whole structure shakes like it might pull apart.
Hmm. Hmm.
Spark catches the gas, fire shoots through the rig, turning hallways into burning tunnels. The crew is forced to split across the rig with almost no way to reach each other. The rig ultimately sinks, and survivors gather on a supply vessel covered in mud, oil, and burns.
When we get to the very last step, about 8 of us, the other lifeboat starts descending.
They're leaving without you?
They have left without the captain and without knowing that they had everyone that had survived all this on board.
The real Deepwater Horizon disaster grew out of a chain of rushed choices on the Macondo well. When the blowout preventer failed to seal it, oil poured into the Gulf of Mexico for 87 days, spreading across the water and coast while cleanup crews worked for months. The movie focuses on the single night everything collapsed, but the real damage and investigations stretched on long after the fire went out. Level 2. Deadly Fire. In Only the Brave, 19 firefighters step off a burned ridge toward a spot they thought was safer, unaware that fire was already on their route. The film moves straight into this shift. The crew walks downhill in a tight line while smoke builds ahead, moving toward a nearby ranch marked earlier as a safety zone.
What?
Wind picks up, breaking their radio calls and darkening the air.
All right, hey, I'm at the dozer. Hey, man, it's too close. I gotta move.
Donut, stay calm.
Hey, twin. Pause that bit one more time. I gotta get 2 more damn apples. Hold on, twin. Shit. I bring that whole damn bag.
No, baby, don't do that.
Anything else? I'm over that time. You're already right there. Are you clear now?
Judging distance becomes harder, yet they push forward. The crew slows, trying to read the ground through a wall of ash. The breaking point arrives when the fire reaches the stretch of brush ahead of them. Retreat is no longer an option, so the crew switches from movement to survival. Tools drop, a patch of ground is scraped clear, and the shelter comes out in one practiced motion.
Get your feet to the fire! Tyler, get your water! Feet to the fire!
I know that shit hot.
The film stays outside the shelter as the fire sweeps through the basin, so the moment of impact is felt through the burnover rather than shown directly. Once the flames pass, the story follows the search crews and the town as they wait for news. Brendan McDonough becomes the only hotshot left. Families and crew members gather in silence around the 19 names that now define the film's ending.
I mean, I was still with our vehicles in one of the buggies, and I can hear whoever didn't bring their phone, I could hear phones ringing, knowing that it was their wives, their family.
That's fucked up.
I sunk into my seat, I sunk into myself. I couldn't think.
That site later became the Granite Mountain Hotshots Memorial State Park, where people still hike out to leave patches, helmets, and small tributes in the spot that holds their final footprints. Evil Widow. In A Widow's Game, a man lies beside his car in an underground garage. His wife, Maria, rushes in crying as if the attack came out of nowhere.
Pero vamos, que yo acabo de llegar de trabajar y llevaba toda la mañana sin contestarme al teléfono. Y ahora al ver todo esto.
Lo siento.
Detective Ava studies the scene and notices how nothing is stolen. There's no real struggle, and the space feels controlled instead of chaotic. That pushes her away from the idea of a random mugging and toward a planned hit by someone who knew Antonio's routine.
La cartera estaba intacta. De momento descartamos el móvil del robo. Dinero y amor. Tiradme todos los bolos, ¿eh? Su mujer es enfermera, ¿no? Mirad también por ahí.
From there, the film stays close to Maria's double life, who cries, talks about how much she loved her husband, and plays the shocked widow in public. But in private, she skips work to see other men. Each one hears a different version of her story. To one, she's separating. To another, she's trapped with a controlling partner. One of those men is Salva, a nurse who grows attached the more she leans on him. Maria walks Salva through Antonio's schedule, explains that he always uses the same underground garage, points out his car, and gives Salva a way to get inside without drawing attention.
Pero le pondré una excusa para que lo meta aquí la noche antes. Esta es la llave para que puedas entrar.
That access is what makes the attack possible. Salva gets into the garage because Maria has already shown him how it works. Arturo walks in expecting a normal routine, so Arturo doesn't realize danger is close until it's too late. The stabbing itself stays off-screen. Ava's team soon pulls phone records and chat logs and finds that Maria's grief in front of family sits beside romantic, playful messages to Salva and other lovers. That split makes it impossible to treat her as a harmless victim. Interrogation closes in on Maria, who repeats her original story, only this time, Ava answers with screenshots and recordings. She asks who had the garage keys, who knew Antonio's routine, and why Maria met Salva right after police mentioned a suspect. The film ends with both Maria and Salva convicted.
En la anterior declaración, yo dije que fue cosa mía solamente,
pero
fue cosa de los dos.
¿Ella le pide a usted?
Sí.
But in real life, the film mirrors the 2017 Patres case in Valencia. A jury sentenced Mahe, the wife, to 22 years as the instigator and Salva to 17 as the... Spanish media labeled her the Black Widow of Patres, followed her new relationship in prison and the birth of her child when Antonio...
Nigga got more years.
Damn.
That's fucked up.
Alright.
Damn, man.
Was mostly remembered as the man ambushed next to his car.
Like, she got more years than the other nigga.
Cause she plotted that bitch, fam.
I know, but she's the instigator. The nigga's the killer. He's the murderer, though. He the one had the reference.
Yeah.
This story shows how far real people can go when obsession takes over. Make sure to subscribe because the next cases cross boundaries you would never expect. Level 3. Homemade Murder. The film Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer opens with a woman in a quiet field while soft music plays. Henry drives away as if nothing unusual happened, which quietly frames his violence as part of everyday life, rather than some big turning point. The story then settles into his small Chicago apartment. Henry lives with Otis, an unstable ex-con, and Otis's teenage sister Becky. On the surface, it looks like three broke people sharing a boring life, but soon violence slips into that routine without warning. Henry and Otis go for a drive, chat with a woman in the car, and the next shot cuts straight to her body by the side of the road. Later, they visit a man at work and pretend to be customers. Next time we see that room, he's on the floor and his car is gone.
Look at the world. It's either you or them. You know what I mean.
Because the attacks stay off camera, the film keeps snapping from casual chatter to the aftermath. After a while, another body feels like something that fits between beers and TV instead of a huge event. The stolen camcorder pushes the story into its darkest stretch. Henry and Otis pick it up during a robbery, and the next time we see it, the tape jumps to a stranger's living room. The person filming shouldn't be there, and the visit turns tense until the camera drops and the violence spills in from off-screen. Later that night, Henry and Otis watch the tape on their couch like it's casual entertainment.
What are you doing?
Don't want to see it again.
The film draws inspiration from the real Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, but bends their story to keep this tight focus. In
They
reality,
look more ugly in real life.
Alright.
What the fuck?
Ugly fall.
Lucas never filmed his crime, so the camcorder scene is a fictional device that turns his casual attitude into something visible. One huge part of Lucas's history never appears at all. After those Texas confessions, he claimed hundreds of murders, and a task force used his statements to close cold cases, only for later checks to show that many of those claims were impossible and that his real body count was much lower than the legend.
You lied to the police, you lied to the families, you've done nothing but lie.
It ain't worth it.
Do you feel ashamed of what you've done?
Unless they put themselves in the type of life I lived. Wouldn't understand.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, ignores that whole circus and stays with the smaller picture of 3 people in a cramped apartment, which is exactly why it hits so hard. The Untouchable Killer. In Citizen X, a forensics doctor walks...
They went to new ones to old movies. All the old.
Into a field near Rostov, expecting one body. Search lines sweep the brush and keep turning up more bones and torn clothes. By the end, there are several victims, many of them children or young women, all killed in similar ways. For investigator Viktor Burakov, this points to one man using the same killing ground for years. Burakov's superiors order him to treat each corpse as a separate case. If they admit that one man is hunting along stations, bus stops, and forest strips, their image would have been ruined. The story keeps cutting to the killer they cannot catch. Andrei Chikatilo drives through small stations and bus stops, watching children and young women. He picks people who are alone, offers them help, then walks them away from platforms into trees and fields.
If you know where to go.
Yeah, think you were watching those kids and shit.
Huh?
You were watching the kids and shit.
Nigga, stop playing.
I ain't playing with you, nigga. What?
Their first real chance to stop him comes when patrol officers spot a nervous man with glasses hanging around children at a station. They follow him, search his bag, and find a knife plus other incriminating items.
Please stand, citizen. Chikatilo. May I have your bag? Citizen Chikatilo, you're under arrest.
Burakov wants to hold him and build a case, but the arrest hits a wall when crude blood tests say his type does not match traces from some scenes, and he carries a party card. Senior officers trust that combination more than the pattern and release him. After a while, Chikatilo is arrested again, officially on minor charges, but he faces long, aggressive interrogations from prosecutor Gorbanov, who tries to beat a confession out of him. For days, Chikatilo stays calm and repeats denials as the legal deadline for holding him runs out. With almost no time left, Burakov and Fedosov call in a psychiatrist, Dr. Alexander Baranovsky, who sits opposite Chikatilo and reads from his profile. He talks about impotence, humiliation, and the need to regain control through stabbing and cutting. He describes the kill.
Gonna fill you. I said I'm gonna fill you up with happiness.
No, nigga.
You got no choice.
Life and
I do got a choice, nigga.
Not working with me, you don't have a choice. You're gonna do what I say.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Tail which finally cracks
You open your mouth.
No.
Possibly a reflection of excess belief
You got no choice.
in the folktale that the victims are.
You ever been manhandled?
Retain an image.
No, why you telling me that? Tell your girl that.
No, I want to tell you that. I want that bumper
He
back there.
confesses to dozens of murders and leads police to dumbing sites they haven't
she
even
do got a
found
bumper,
yet.
but yours way bigger.
Film ends with guards taking him into a bare room with a drain in the floor and shooting him
But
in the
George be
head.
hanging out.
In real life, he was found sane, convicted of 52 murders,
You're right
and
in your
executed
hole.
with a single shot in the mid-1990s. Hitchhiked to hell. In Wolf Creek, everything really starts when three backpackers' car dies in the middle of nowhere, and the only person who stops to help is the exact man they should never have trusted. The three friends are driving through the Australian outback when their car suddenly gives up near the Wolf Creek crater. Hours pass before a truck pulls up and the driver gets out. He introduces himself as Mick Taylor, who seems laid back and helpful.
What?
My shit had came when it went off. I don't know what the fuck just happened. Alright.
Wait, the phone?
Nah, the screen had black dot. It's back on. You can play it.
Full. He checks the car over and tells them he can't fix it out here, so he offers to tow them back to his place where there are proper tools.
The only good news is I got the gear to do it.
Oh, fuck, no.
Problem is, it's back at my camp just down the roadway. Well, I'm going back down there anyway, so I can give you a tow. Fix it tonight, probably have you on the road by the morning.
The group doesn't really have any options, so they agree to go with them. At the camp, Mick has a fire going. He offers them water and says he'll look at the car in the morning. The three backpackers relax and start to feel like they've just had a bad day that's finally turning around.
Yeah, I
but
wouldn't
soon the
been
group
sleep.
starts
Fuck
feeling
that.
drowsy, and by the time one of them wakes up again, they're no longer just guests around a campfire. They're tied up, hurt, and finally seeing Mick as someone who never planned to let them leave. By the end of the film, two of the backpackers, Liz and Christy, never make it out. They both die while trying to escape Mick, and the police searches never find any traces of them. Ben is the only one who survives. He wakes up nailed to a kind of makeshift cross in one of Mick's mine shafts, manages to free himself, and eventually collapses beside a dirt road where a passing couple find him and get him to a hospital. Since he's the only witness and there's no clear physical trail leading back to Mick, police hold him for months before finally clearing him. Ben's rescue closes the movie on a narrow escape, but the final shot shifts everything back to the wider landscape. Mick walks away with his rifle, unbothered, like the country itself is covering for him. That open ending hits harder once you know the film isn't drawn from a single case. It's stitched together from real outback stories where tourists trusted one driver on a long empty road and vanished into land that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. Level 4.
This shit crazy.
Human Logs. In Men Behind the Sun, a group of Japanese schoolboys settle into life inside Unit 731. At first, their days look like normal military routine. Officers talk about science and progress, which helps sell the illusion that this is a clean, modern facility.
各位，这就是我石井四郎的新发明，这种东西就叫做低温陶瓷细菌弹。
However, cracks begin to appear when the boys realize the prisoners are not criminals being treated, they are material. Guards call them logs, march them in lines, and treat them like cargo. That mirrors Unit 731's real cover story. New arrivals were counted by number and ethnicity instead of name, so they became items to process rather than people. As the film goes deeper into the compound, the boys move closer to the labs. They see prisoners used in cold experiments. Unit 731 staff infected prisoners with plague, cholera, and other diseases. The goal was to watch how a living body reacted in real time. No one was meant to leave alive. As Japan faces defeat, the unit scrambles to destroy evidence. In real life, that moment came in August 1945 when the Soviet Union invaded Manchuria and advanced toward Harbin. Unit 731 leadership ordered a scorched earth retreat in which buildings were blown up, documents burned, and remaining prisoners killed to remove witnesses. Staff removed insignia from their uniforms and tried to disappear. Incinerators ran constantly while the complex came down around them. The film ends with a sense that justice is still missing, which matches what actually happened. While the Soviets held their trial, intelligence officers negotiated with Shiro Ishii and other leaders, trading immunity for Unit 731's research data. Declassified records later showed American agencies saw clear evidence as invaluable for their own Cold War bioweapon work, and most people behind Unit 731 never even faced a courtroom. In fact, many went on to hold respected positions in universities, hospitals, and industry. Vacation to the altar. In Borderland, 3 American students cross into a Mexican border town for cheap drinks and a wild night.
It's dumb, babe.
But what the fuck?
Come on, bro. Give me the bag.
What I left for?
Bro. Why the fuck did you eat my shit up?
Why you gave your brother the other bag? Yeah, you gave him the damn goldfishes and all.
I'm sorry, Daddy.
Get right in your mouth. Damn, twin, play the thing. What the fuck you listening to this shit?
I'm listening to the background on my phones. I'm trying to figure out what they saying.
Play the damn thing, bro.
Morning, one of them is gone. Ed and Henry treat the script like any other party stop, so Phil relaxes and follows their lead. However, Phil hangs back for a moment, slips out of their sights, and that tiny gap is all a watching group needs.
I'm tweaking,
Suddenly, a truck pulls
watching
up,
this
the men
damn
move
video and
fast,
shit.
and Phil vanishes before anyone notices.
You know, I'm gonna walk anyway.
Oh, shit.
The film follows him to a compound outside the city where everyone inside answers to one leader who mixes fear, religion, and drug money. He claims that ritual sacrifices will keep their business safe from police and rivals, so Phil is locked into a shack and beaten.
Ritual sacrifices.
Back in town, Ed and Henry wake up to find Phil's bed still untouched, meaning he never came back. As the hours pass with no sign of him, they eventually run into a local officer who was used to stories about missing locals and a cult on a ranch outside town. So, he links Phil's disappearance to those rumors and leads the two friends toward the compound. Inside the ranch, the cult starts preparing the next ritual, and Phil hears enough through the shack walls to realize he's next. At the exact moment the officer arrives at the property with Ed and Henry, one of the cult members spots them and opens fire, which blows their cover. As gunshots rip through the yard, people scatter, and the
shit scary, nigga. Real life, nigga? In real life, man? Come on, gang.
Spit right in your mouth.
Hell no.
Yeah, you.
No, nigga, this some real life shit. A man loses his bones and organs, but he regrets and become bulletproof capable of being a hook. I seen this shit before. They were and say most disturbing crimes that happen in kids shows. Well, cause surprised he's never read a church choir. Nah, I ain't finna watch no Jeep of Creepers. I'm sorry. Body cam shop cops pull over a skinwalker. Nah, that's too damn scary.
What the fuck?
Skinwalker? Nah. Pete, I don't think you want to watch that.
Yeah.
Discover animal. Kind of. What the fuck? We gotta look at this.
Press it.
Damn, this an hour? Oh, hell no.
Nigga, we watched some of it.
We watched some of it.
Turning into underwater tanks. These are terrifying Chernobyl mutations caught on camera. What you're looking at here is a frog affected by the radiation of Chernobyl. In 2016, two Spanish researchers, Pablo Barraco and German Oriazola, were studying how life was bouncing back in Pripyat, and they noticed something strange. Black frogs. Now, obviously, dark-colored frogs on their own aren't unusual, but the type of frog they were looking at, Hyla orientalis, a tree frog native to the area, is usually bright green. So what happened? Well, it turns out it might be evolution caused by the radiation. The darker skin isn't random. These frogs have developed higher levels of melanin, the same pigment that protects human skin from UV damage. In this case, it helps.
But I heard that scientists is testing animals and they looking weird as fuck, bro.
Alright.
Block radiation from damaging the frog's cells, and it seems this shift happened fast. Within a few decades, a bright green species started turning dark to survive in a nuclear zone. It's one of the clearest examples of nature adapting. Instead of dying out, these frogs have adjusted their biology to deal with one of the harshest environments on the planet. This is Jeremy Wade, River Monsters guy, pulling a massive catfish out of one of the cooling ponds near the Chernobyl power plant. These ponds are still radioactive. Wade mentioned the fish he caught had radiation levels about 16 times higher than normal. But what really grabs attention is the size of these things. They're huge. People have wondered if radiation is causing these fish to mutate and grow into monsters, but it may not be the radiation that's making them giants. It's more about the environment. These ponds are closed off, meaning the catfish are at the top of the food chain. No predators, tons of food, and people even feed them sometimes, so over time they just get bigger and bigger. They're living longer as well, which adds to their size. Now, that doesn't mean they're not being affected by the radiation. They're definitely soaking it in.
Damn.
Scientists are still studying whether there are long-term
big-ass
mutations
catfish.
or effects we can't see.
That shit could feed you like
Either
a
way,
month.
these catfish are a real reminder of how life can keep going.
Man, I could
in
feed a whole
places where
family, man, off one fish.
Wolves in Chernobyl aren't just surviving, they might actually be evolving. In 2014, Dr. Kara Love and her team
Man, that's a dog?
headed to the exclusion zone and put GPS collars on several wolves to track them. These collars didn't just show where the wolves were going, they also measured radiation exposure in real time. The wolves were getting hit with radiation levels up to 6 times the legal safety limit for humans every single day. That should be deadly, but instead of dying off, the wolves seem to be adapting. BLOOD samples showed changes in their immune systems, almost like what you'd see in a person going through radiation therapy. Even more interesting, parts of their DNA looked like they were evolving to resist cancer. In a place where cancer risk should be through the roof, these wolves are developing ways to fight it. Now, because of the situation in Ukraine and obvious safety concerns, the research is slowed down, but if what they've actually found holds up, these wolves might be the key to understanding how to survive.
I want a
in
wolf.
high
I want a baby
radiation
wolf,
environments. Because we all want to do that, right? Maybe even how to treat cancer in humans one day. Now that we definitely want. Wild boars in the Chernobyl exclusion zone are basically radiation sponges. Out of the animals still hanging around, these guys are carrying some of the highest levels of radioactive material in their bodies. And it all comes down to what they eat. Boars dig through the soil looking for roots, insects, and mushrooms, especially deer truffles. And those truffles are loaded with radiation because the soil around Chernobyl is still contaminated. So the boars eat and the radiation builds up inside them. Over time, it's had some nasty effects. People have reported sightings of boars with strange growths, tumors, physical deformities. It's not like they're growing extra legs or anything out of a comic book, but their bodies clearly aren't doing great. Radiation messes with their cells and weakens their immune systems, making them more likely to get sick or develop weird internal issues. But even still, they are surviving. Maybe not as well as the dogs or wolves, but they've managed to reproduce and live in this environment. Some are even leaving the exclusion zone and mixing with boar populations in other parts of Europe, which is kind of concerning. So this may not be a living thing, but considering it's a glob of radioactive goo, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is. It's known as the elephant's foot, one of the most famous
What
concoctions
the
to come
fuck?
out of the Chernobyl disaster. After Reactor 4 blew up, a bunch of nuclear fuel, metal and concrete fused together under the plant and cooled into this massive lump of radioactive material, and it kind of looked like a deformed elephant's foot. Thus, it was dubbed the elephant's foot. When this thing was first formed, it was putting out so much radiation that standing near it for just a few minutes could kill you. Not exaggerating. People who had to go near it in the early days of cleanup would get a lethal dose of radiation in minutes. One guy who filmed it back in the 80s was reportedly dead within a year. Even now, decades later, it's still dangerous. The radiation has cooled down a bit, but not enough to really make it safe. Scientists have kept an eye on it over the years because they were worried it might keep leaking radiation or start heating up again. It's also affected the air, water, and soil around it. They call the elephant's foot a kind of man-made lava, except instead of burning you, it poisons you. And yeah, it's still sitting there, deep under Reactor 4, slowly decaying, but still very dangerous. Now, right next to the Chernobyl plant is a place called the Red Forest, and it got that name for a pretty grim reason. When Reactor 4 exploded, it sent a radioactive cloud directly over this patch of forest, and within hours, the pine trees turned a weird rust red color. Basically, they died almost instantly from radiation exposure. That entire section of forest just collapsed. But over the years, new trees started growing again. Not quite like before though. Scientists have found trees with bizarre growth patterns. Some have twisted trunks, stunted branches, or grow at strange angles. A few have odd discolorations or split limbs that don't match normal growth cycles. Even now, decades later, radiation levels in the Red Forest are some of the highest in the whole exclusion zone. The forest acts like a sponge, so any rain that soaks into the soil can stir up radioactive particles again. Now, beside the massive catfish in the cooling ponds near Chernobyl, smaller fish in the rivers and lakes around Pripyat have shown some pretty unsettling traits. Researchers have talked about fish with physical deformities like missing eyes, bulging growths coming out of them, or just oddly shaped in general. The radiation that poured into the nearby waterways didn't just disappear, it seeped into the water, settling in the silt and got into the food chain. Small aquatic creatures absorbed it, and the fish that ate them absorbed even more. That kind of exposure messes with how cells divide and grow, and that's how you end up with fish that look like Blinky from The Simpsons. And then there are all the issues you can't see with the naked eye.
Fuck? Ugly ass
Some fish are born sterile, others just don't live as long as they
Alright.
should, but there are still
What
plenty
the fuck?
swimming around. The strange thing
Hey,
is that
guys.
some species have adapted
That bitch got 2 mouths.
mutations don't always kill them off right away, they just make the fish look off. So while they might not be glowing like in cartoons, they're definitely not normal. This is one of the darkest and hardest to talk about. After the explosion, over 600,000 people were called in to help contain the disaster. These weren't all volunteers. Many were soldiers, firefighters, and regular workers who didn't fully understand how dangerous the job was. They were called liquidators, and their job was to clean up the mess, build the sarcophagus over the reactor, and stop the radiation from spreading. There's tons of footage and photographs of these people working away in Chernobyl, completely unaware of how the radiation would affect them later on. A lot of them went in without proper protection too, some with just a cloth mask or nothing at all, and the effects were brutal. Radiation burns, organ failure, thyroid cancer, and in some cases death within mere days. Some liquidators were exposed to such high doses that their bodies literally started breaking down on a cellular level. Some survivors lived for years afterward, but a lot of them did deal with long-term health issues like tumors, birth defects in their children, bone diseases. There are stories of liquidators who ended up completely isolated, physically and emotionally wrecked from what they experienced. So when people talk about mutations, it's not just fish and frogs, it's human lives that were permanently altered. After the Chernobyl disaster, everyone had to evacuate. Of course, that meant most pets, especially dogs, got left behind. While in the decades since, those abandoned pets have multiplied into entire packs of wild dogs living in and around the exclusion zone. A recent study from the University of South Carolina and the National Human Genome Research Institute looked into 302 2 of these dogs. The goal is to see how radiation may have affected them over generations, and it turns out that these dogs aren't just surviving, they might actually be doing pretty well. Unlike bees and some other animals that seem to struggle with reproduction in the area, the dogs are doing just fine. They're reproducing normally, raising litters, roaming free. Scientists believe they may have developed some kind of resistance to the radiation. There's even early evidence showing they're less prone to cancer. Now, we're not saying they're invincible, obviously, but if these dogs really have adapted to these high levels of radiation, that could mean their biology is changing to handle one of the deadliest threats on Earth. It's still early days in the research, but it's enough to make you stop and think. Somehow, these animals have managed to carve out a life in one of the most hostile places on the planet, and that is pretty nuts. If you want straight up visible proof of mutation from Chernobyl, check out the firebugs. These little red and black bugs are normally easy to spot because they have a really distinct pattern. But in the exclusion zone, researchers started finding ones that looked all kinds of messed up. Patterns were totally off. Some bugs had their markings in the wrong spots, others were missing parts altogether. Scientists Timothy Mousseau and Anders Moller actually did a study and found that the bugs living closer to the reactor were way more likely to have these deformities. They photographed tons of them and compared them to firebugs from outside the zone, and yeah, the difference is obvious. It's not the most dramatic mutation you'll ever see, but it's one of the clearest cases that got caught on camera.
There are still crazy things going on in Chernobyl to this day, decades after the explosion of the reactor at the nuclear power plant in April 1986. Now, animals and nature have rightfully been affected in a big way. According to a study that began in 1991, the organisms responsible for decomposition and replenishing organic matter back into the ecosystem, such as insects, fungi, and microbes, are presenting symptoms of radioactive contamination, which isn't too shocking, but still isn't good. One of the most prominent areas of this effect has been called the Bloody Red Forest. It's a set of woodland where all the pine trees turned a blood red color right after the meltdown and then died not long after. Now, it's pretty, don't get me wrong, but it's completely unnatural and has caused some issues. Now, 15 to 20 years after they were exposed to radiation and died, these trees were not decaying, when at this point, normal trees would be long gone. Due to this, scientists decided to run some tests by filling specially prepared garbage bags with leaf litter from uncontaminated areas, making sure there were no insects or decomposers present, and then leaving the bags out in both contaminated and uncontaminated wooded areas in the exclusion zone for nearly a year to check the decomposition rates of the leaves. Now, bags left in uncontaminated areas were as expected, with normal rates of decomposition between 70 to 90% of the leaves decomposing. But the leaves in contaminated areas retained 60% of their original weight, indicating much less activity by natural decomposers. Now, this suggests that the radiation exposure has a detrimental effect on the ability of the Chernobyl ecosystem to replenish itself with nutrients, which could be causing the stunting of tree growth that has been recorded. But with this comes another problem. The leaves in contaminated areas stayed intact and dry even after almost a year, and this could present a fire hazard, which in turn presents a danger of radioactive contaminants being spread outside the exclusion zone by forest fires. So that is scary and just not good at all. Then there's how this affected all the animals. According to a 2011 study in Biological Conservation, Chernobyl caused genetic mutations in plants and animals increased by a factor of 20. Among breeding birds in that region, rare species suffered disproportionate effects from the explosion's radiation compared to common species. Now, further research is needed to understand how the increased mutations affect species' reproductive rates, population size, genetic diversity, and other survival factors, but it definitely affected animals in a negative way. In 2016, a study found that the eastern tree frogs in the Chernobyl exclusion zone exhibited different characteristics than their neighboring cousins, and in 2023, another study discovered distinct genetic differences between Chernobyl dogs and dogs living only 10 miles away in Chernobyl City. Now, not all the animals living around Chernobyl are entirely wild, as there are around 900 stray dogs, mostly descended from those left behind when people evacuated the area. Veterinarians, radiation experts, and volunteers from a group called the Dogs of Chernobyl captured the dogs, vaccinated them against diseases, and tagged them. Now, in addition to the tags, some dogs are fitted with radiation detector collars. Now, the dogs offer a way to map radiation across the Chernobyl exclusion zone and study the ongoing effects of the accident. While scientists generally can't get a close look at individual wild animals in the zone, they can monitor the dogs closely, and they are, of course, radioactive. Visitors to the area are advised to avoid petting the dogs to minimize radiation exposure, no matter how cute they are. Now, these dogs have increased rates of cataracts because the eyes are the first tissues to show signs of chronic exposure to ionizing radiation. Now, not all is lost on these dogs though, as the unique genetic diversity of these dogs makes them ideal candidates for future studies, seeking to understand the long-term genetic health effects of highly radioactive environments on populations of large mammals, especially in understanding the biological underpinnings of human survival in regions of high and continuous environmental assault, the researchers said. So, I guess that's a plus. Then there's the birds. While there are plenty of them in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, 489 different species to be exact, they are examples of animals that still face problems from radiation exposure. A study of barn swallows from 1991 to 2006 indicated birds in the exclusion zone displayed more abnormalities than birds from a controlled sample, including deformed beaks, albinistic feathers, bent tail feathers, and deformed air sacs. Now, birds in the zone had less reproductive success, and these birds often had smaller brains, malformed sperm, and cataracts, presumably as a result of radiation-related genetic mutations. Now, if you are already scared of spiders, these ones will freak you out even more. The spiders here are radioactive as they build their webs to catch their prey. They add to the dangerous environment of the forest. These webs are not like normal spider webs. In fact, they are woven in abstract ways that suggest genetic mutation is at hand. Now, they're also highly radioactive themselves, making them a danger for any non-radioactive animal to touch. Now, who knew spiders could get 100 times scarier? But that's not the only scary mutated animal there. According to Slate in the early 90s, which was just a few years after the incident, radiation levels in the wild boar that died near Chernobyl were more than 2,000 times what's considered safe. And even today, eating animals from inside the exclusion zone is still pretty hazardous, as a person might be exposed to radiation levels that are dozens of times higher.
Sleep real quick. I took the melatonin.
Who are you?
Yeah, I'm kind of sleepy, bro.
Alright, man.
My tablet dying, bro.
Alright, I'll talk to you tomorrow again.
Alright, love.
Much love again. Damn, nigga. Chat. This mutation shit is out of control, nigga. Why would she do that, bro? Why would she do this, bro? Shit crazy, dog. Alright, guys, hope y'all join the live. I'll see y'all guys soon. I'm gonna be on live tomorrow. And love y'all.